I think we just want to structure today's talk around getting to know the world through the lens of Marc Bauder and understanding the work and the perception that he brings, and also how through his projects and through the versatility of his projects, how he interacts with audiences and what the audiences will be, what he hopes the audiences take away from his work, long-term, short-term, etc. And then we'll have a little Q&A at the end, so get your questions ready. So first, welcome. Thank you for coming. So let's just talk very broadly. As a content maker, director, producer, artist, someone who's also committed to social justice through your work, tell us what is your artistic philosophy, or how do you approach, how do you see yourself in the world through the contributions that you make as an artist?
I would say I start with a question. I start with a question I have to society and to my surrounding. And I was lucky that during studying business, I found out that my way of expression is film. Before I couldn't express or to transform what I experienced in an appropriate way. So and then I discovered film as a medium to use as a tool to transform my ideas in projects and to reach a broader audience with this, beside mouse-to-mouse explanations.
And so through film and through the various projects that you've done, how has your philosophy changed, or has your approach changed as you've gone through your work, through from your first film to even recently your projects in development?
Interestingly, I discovered that when I do documentaries, they are very aesthetic. They are very, how to say, arranged settings, or pre-arranged settings. I'm not arranging the way of interviews. So these are real, but I try to find a new. I try to find settings which add something on the story. On the other side, when I do fiction films, they are very documentary topic driven. So I did one fiction film called The System, which it's about this gas pipeline from Russia to Germany, which is based on a true story, and they were included. The board of the pipeline was a former Stasi guy, and in the head of the board was Gerd Schröder. And we were looking for an angle to tell the story, but then we realized it's not important to tell a story about this one guy. It's more about a society dealing with the past and the traces of people who were for a different system who can adapt very easily. And this happened in Germany twice, like after the wall came down, but before in '45, where people adapted easily from one system to the next. And this was what was more interesting for us, and so we decided to transform this in a fiction film. Also, everything we tell is based on many different real stories. So I realized after a while that I'm using the medium with different angles. So I'm now preparing a fiction film on the financial crisis, but more about the psychology of the people and the question what's going on with you when you realize what you do. And the story is about suicides among guys in management. There were about 50 people committing suicide within 1 year. So in this case, we were choosing the fiction film to find the sub-layer of the stories, and it's not about why did it one person. It's more interesting what is going on in a person's mind, to follow it from different angles.
So then how do you employ, let's say, how do you change your research strategies for, let's say, fiction and for a doc?
I don't change them. I think it starts with a question, then I'm doing my research, and then we decide what's the best form to transport a topic or to transform the idea in a film or in another project. So it's form follows function, do you say, or function follows form? I don't know, but I'm following the idea. And some of my ideas, I realize, okay, this is just personal interest. I don't just for my interest, and that's it. But in the next step, when I realize that this is a more global topic or more for a broader audience, then we decide it's a documentary or it's a fiction film. For example, for this fiction film we're preparing, shooting in November, I was asked by my commissioning editor, who was the commissioning editor for Master of the Universe, to do a documentary about suicides among bankers. And then I did the research, and I realized it's not the answer, or the question is not, it's not interested in why he did it. It's more interesting why the society did it and what's going on in society. So then we stick to the topic and change the form.
And so that's the director in you, the producer in you, which also filters into that, but then the budget of that goes up tremendously. How do you, as a producer, then alter kind of your approach to how you're going to tell each story?
I was lucky that this wasn't a question when I decided it, and I was always lucky that I immediately found somebody who was totally into the project. Like this one is 100% financed by a public broadcaster in Germany. But because it has an actuality, and this is a topic which is rarely dealt with in films. There's Margin Call, and then Wolf of Wall Street, which is an old-fashioned way of telling stories of a very good filmmaker, but very old right now. So there are not many films about this, and so this was our luck that they realized this is a new angle of telling stories about people in this industry, but also people about our society. Because I'm not dealing with the financial aspects of society. No, I'm dealing with the society, and to understand society, so social changes, I have to deal with economic, because in the economic world is the driver of changes. So like how to get the most out of people, or how to cut down, or how to train them in school. In Germany we had university. I was studying about 6 years, and 10 years ago they were changing the educational system to adapt it to the US system, and now they're studying 4 years to get people younger in job positions. But now the companies are complaining because they're too young, they don't know who they are, but they are very good in fulfilling jobs. So that's why I'm dealing with economic issues. I'm dealing to understand what's going on in my surrounding and in my society. Is that like with Master of the Universe, if this would have been a single problem for a single society or a single caste or country, I wouldn't have dealt with it. But it's affecting my life. It's affecting the life of my son, the future of my son, and that's why I'm doing the films. So I'm not a financial specialist. I'm more sociologist. So trying to understand what's going on with us.
And just from an audience perspective, I'll say that your films are not. They're not experience. You don't sit and passively consume your films as an audience person. You are actively engaged in your films. You create an experience that every person is very present watching, and it's. I'll say this as a former programmer. It's a little bit rare to hit that nice peak where an audience has to work, and they want to work, and especially with Master of the Universe because it was such a foray into a world that we don't know, and he was basically the perfect character.
Yeah, it was really
clear, very clear. First of all,
yeah.
And that's a risk that you run if you're telling a story of that. Tell us about how. I imagine that the casting call for Master of the Universe was tough, given that maybe no one wanted to speak. But where did you find him? How did he come out of the woodwork? And then what pre-arrangements had you made with him in terms of what he could talk about, what he couldn't? What were some of the parameters he had set?
Yeah, at first I wanted to do a documentary about this topic because I thought if you do a fiction film, I did a documentary which was turned in a theater play, and we combined the show, but it was interesting to see that people who watched this theater play, which 60% was based off my documentary, they were laughing. But after we were showing the documentary, they weren't laughing anymore because they realized this was reality. So in case of financial crisis, I was looking for documentary angle because I think it's important to have a real person or to a real understanding. But it was difficult to find appropriate persons because, and this is why I understood afterwards, because I started placing a an ad or like a request in a conservative newspaper in Germany, asking for people from having insight, knowledge, and their personal perspective and whatever. And the only people who answered were retired people above 70, living in the south of Germany, and I think they're facing death, realizing that they have to write something or do something, or at least for the personal soul, whatever. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't lucky. I rejected all the context or the ideas. Somebody was sending me books they published by themselves, or paying a publisher to publish the books. So, and then I changed, and I thought I was doing research for a fiction film about journalism, economics, and politics. It's a triangle, how they affect each other, how they need each other. And I was meeting a politician from the Green Party, he's the specialist in financial topics, and he told me about from time to time he calls a guy in Frankfurt, which gives him inside information. And I said, okay, can you ask this guy if I can call him also? And then it went quite fast. So I had spent 5 days talking to him on phone once a day, and on the 7th day I went to him to visit him in Frankfurt, and I had a small audio tape with me. And he was telling me the story right at the beginning, which I included right at the beginning of the film, about one- and two-nighters. So I realized, okay, this is a person who really wants to open up and wants to go to the personal, psychological aspects. And the way he was describing this whole world, this was so, how to say, picturesque? No, it was so vivid that I realized it's not like typical documentaries. You need 3 people or 3 families or 3 top persons telling the same stories, but to make it more sure and more appropriate for the whole topic, you use 3 to say this is the whole 100% thing. And I thought, but concentrate on one, I'm more 100% because I'm into this psychological questions of what leads people to do this kind of job, what leads them to drives them to go on and on and on, and going further than normal routes to cross the boundaries. And so I just followed my personal interest and impression, because my commissioning editor, I did 3 films with before, he said, it's an interesting topic and it's great that you found somebody, but maybe you should find somebody number 2 and 3. And I said, no, I think I've done it. This is one person, it's more interesting. He's my guy. And I was totally convinced. So that's my guy. And,
let's show the trailer.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
My guy.
Was muss man erwarten als nächstes?
Bagage. Bagage.
That was 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago.
Does he still believe that?
Yeah,
Is he still France?
he's getting invited a lot by France. We had a cinema release, I think, in 7 European countries besides Germany, and the film is doing quite well in France, Spain, and Italy and Greece.
Everybody who got down there.
And he's got invited. He's got invited to having speeches. I think they have a lot of questions, and maybe he can help them a bit.
Yeah.
And has it? So talk a little bit more about the impact of the film that it's been having. So has the finance industry responded?
No, we had the topic 10 minutes ago. I think it's the typical thing. It's also today in politics, and like to the Truth and Reconciliation question of the Prime Minister, if he should have said something. It's the same with the financial industry. Saying nothing is the safest way to deal with the problem. So there wasn't any response, and there wasn't any response before to any film or documentary or to any newspaper thing. This is the thing why I did the film, is because it made me angry, because they owe you answers, they owe us answers, and the only thing what they do, they are silent. And if you go there, they're complaining about society not understanding them.
Right.
and I met them. I do my research. I met all the head of communication of Deutsche Bank, Commerzbank, the big German banks, and they were always complaining about society, which doesn't know, and politics, they don't know how to solve the problem, and what having 2x% more or less of this, and whatever. And I said, wow, very self-centered. And but they were afraid of getting in contact with the rest of society. So this is a very parallel universe. They dealing with themselves. That everything is circle about them. He did a job which was you can find 15 times in Germany and 50 times in Europe. So this is very little, a small amount of people concentrated on a small amount or area, knowing each other. Doing my research, I got an information that the head of the communication one called the other one while I was going down across the street. So they were in contact already, and they knew that I'm doing research about this film. So I think that this, unfortunately, there won't be any answers or any reaction in the future also.
So then how, so an audience member sees your film, and I mean, yes, in theory.
But I won, to say,
Yes.
I won a prize for first journalist for economics, like the economics journalist, whatever prize, whether this is a film or a journalist piece, but this was sponsored by Deutsche Bank. And there were at the day of the demonstration, the opening of the European Bank, the EZB, which was in the new building. There were demonstrations going on, and I was sitting with all the head of communication in a very old building in the center of Frankfurt, and they again were complaining. And I said, hey, even now, when they realize that the film it's not an anti-finance film. It's a film to try to understand it's about psychology and the difficulties of saying no at certain levels in life, and it's also difficult for me to say sometimes no. Yeah. So, but even there, it is very close and relaxed atmosphere. They didn't get in contact with me, so they were sitting close to each other, but they weren't speaking with me. Or so we knew each other before, because 2 years before we were in contact. So
Right.
I think they are afraid of, because then you have to have a position, then you have to have an opinion, and this is more frightening me that they don't. I think they don't have an opinion on this. They are also they don't know what to do. Yeah. And before I do something, I just keep on. I keep on doing.
Let's talk a little bit. Let's talk about the aesthetics of the film, because they really informed, you know, the isolation, the segregation, everything that you addressed. So when you were, I mean, the film is very heavily crafted. So as you were basically designing the film, like what visual influences, or like what, how did you basically visually construct your film?
The idea was also, it's about one person. It's not a portrait. So we have to find a setting or a situation to take every additional information about this individual person, to bring it to a higher level, to make it like him, like a prototype, speaking for a disclosed parallel universe. So right from the beginning, doing research, I'm including my DOP in an early stage doing research. We were convinced that we don't want to interview him at home. Because when you do a portrait, sometimes it's very important to do portraits at home, because the surrounding is giving you information about the identity of a person and the personality. But I thought everything he will tell us, we will try to get in contact with the additional information of his, like the carpet. If the carpet is red, then we say, oh yeah, he's saying this because of this. We're trying to find solutions to interpret his answers, you know.
Yeah.
So we want to get it to a deeper level, and more to get it in the center of the topic. So we were looking for an empty floor in Frankfurt. This was doing research, or we were doing pre-shooting, and within one day we found this empty bank, which is 2 banks next to the German bank. This is in the center of Frankfurt, and 10% of Frankfurt is empty, but you don't know it because it's mirrored. So it looks good, and it's mirrored, and it's high, and you say they're still building buildings like here. And then you think, okay, the crisis is over. When they start building, when they keep on building, it's like a machine. This machine is running, so I think the problem is solved, or we think the problem is solved. So, but as soon as you enter and you get in it, you see it's empty.
And the life that was in it
Yeah.
before, as
It's
you were
gone.
explaining, yeah.
So we were really happy to find this empty bank, and then it's for us it's like a second protagonist of the film. Yeah, it's the remains of an older time, or time gone. So, and the other idea is that we only have so little information about this world, and we only have so little pictures of this world, like Wall Street, of the film and Wall Street, the location, or from stock exchange when somebody's telling the news, which are old-fashioned. And whenever we have a topic in a film, or a documentary, or reportage, whatever, we use this kind of pictures given us by the financial industry. They only have some PR minister or whatever, and they give us this information or these pictures. So we want to take these pictures out, or don't use them, and we want to force the audience to develop their own pictures. So that's a double idea of using this empty building. So we're giving you information about like this archive material, which is we put a multi-layered screen multi-layered in this building. But the idea is to realize that we have to restart our thinking and the pictures we have, request the pictures also media shows give us. So they are presenting us, and we think this is reality. Like the news in Germany from the stock market, they're shot in downtown Frankfurt, and but this is a museum. The stock market of Frankfurt is outside because the tax is lower, and it's a computer. It's not real people. Like the stock market of Wall Street. Wall Street is now based. The computers are based in New Jersey. But people are going to Wall Street to make pictures and thinking this is the center of the financial industry. That it's like thinking that you do when you want to do telephone calls. We use this old. This is 30 years over. Yeah. And we're using smartphones and knowing we can communicate, and we still think that this economic world is taking place at Wall Street. This location Wall Street. So this is the idea of the film also, to request our pictures and our perspective on this industry. It's computer-based.
Yeah, and the film addresses that, which is fantastic. So it feels almost like it's a eulogy to, and the way he talks about that heyday as well. It's like, it feels like the whole film is a eulogy to that time, in addition to, some of the residual feelings he has about it. But he's also so tempered, and which is fantastic, because it doesn't leave room for interpretation of, oh, he's just bitter, or, the audience starts doing all of that. So there was a scene in the film. Has everyone seen the film? Okay, so I'm not giving too much away here, but third of the way in the film, he basically says that's the whole scandal. People were not aware of what they were buying. And then he says that's off the record. And then it was in the film. So how do you see yourself in that position as kind of like the filmmaker, the auteur, maybe journalist? How do you kind of mitigate your subject's expectations and yours with the results of the film? Like how do you dance that dance?
I think this is an important scene in the film, because it's a symbol for the struggle we both have. So I think when he started to do the film, and the only thing the rules he had is no names of former colleagues and no names of former employees or banks he was working for. And my deal was, as soon as the day is, you can say stop during the day, but as soon as the day is over, I can do with the material whatever I want. Also, I knew that at the end it's the question who has a better lawyer, not who has signed the contract. But I said, okay, it's basic for trusting each other. And he knew it before, so I knew it for him for half a year, and he knew my perspective and my concentration on family and the psychology. So I wasn't cheating, but I was including this scene because it's important to understand that he's controlled. He's a salesman. Everything he's telling us in the film, he's trying to control it, and there is a layer of information behind this, and it's important to get this kind of irritation in the film to get out this position when the audience is sitting and they're trying now thinking you will get every information and the answers of society and financial problems, he will solve them. So I think we need this kind of irritation to realize he is a person with an agenda. Yeah? And you don't have to trust him everything, and you don't have to trust the filmmaker or whatever. You have to find your own position in this complex situation. So that's why we also included this archive material to show, hey, this were in the past things happened also, but society thought the problem is over. Like with I think we included something from South Korea 25 years ago. Same principle, same concept. They were selling mortgages, same problem, but people forgot. So this was a scene for getting the audience prepared to start to request what the film will try to show them or tell them. And he was fine at the end, because I think if I would have asked him for the singles scene, he would have said no. But he watched the whole film, and he realized that the scene is important for the struggle we both are. We were people from two different worlds meeting for the first time, trying to deal with questions the whole world has. So this is a struggle for both of us, and this is the reason why I included it. Also the question with his family later in the film.
Yeah, and that was quite telling as well. The distance.
Yeah, but you can't blame him for it. He's opening up as much as he could for this period in time, but and it's important to show that there is a second layer behind this, and that there is like irritations in his personality. And I think it's important to show them, but it's not important to show everything of his private life.
Right.
So you don't get information about how, you get information about that he's married or was married, and he has some 2-3 child. And in the other situation, when he's saying stop and with his family, it's important the way he says stop. And he tries to not answer the question. Is telling you more about his struggle with this family aspect than if I would have kept on asking more. So I was trying to push the boundaries further and further to show that there is something behind it, but it's not to open up. It's not important to open everything up. But it's important to know that there is something behind this, some secrets.
And it led beautifully to just the development of the system within even the control in the personal life that the company had, and these micro societies that happen. So that was a very important development that you wouldn't get if you didn't even go there at all.
Yeah.
So it's how and he comes to that realization, which is very interesting. So let's go on to your next project. The Lichtgrenze, yes, which you can tell us a little bit about it first, and just tell everyone here about the project, and then we will show you the making of it.
Should the whole making of, or what do you think? Or should I can show the trailer of 1:30, just to get a feeling of it?
Sure, we can do that. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
we can talk about it.
Sure.
Yeah, let's do that.
Sure.
It's magnificent, and I'd recommend popping on if you can see the making of too. It's fantastic. That's what happens when you're not there.
Yeah.
It's painful.
We have a long version making of, but I think it's more interesting to discuss it here and maybe
Sure.
show it later somewhere.
So how long did it take you? How did it start? Let's start from the beginning. How did it start? How big was your team? How long did you put it together? And then
It's an idea of my brother, myself, and my wife. We came up 7 years ago, in the beginning before 20th anniversary of the wall came down. And it's a combination of, my brother is a light artist. He's dealing with light in public spaces and marking, using light as a way of marking things in public spaces. And to this point, I did 3 documentaries about GDR, or former German society, but also a bit more from the question of what kind of traces I can find in present life. And I was, at this point, I had watched a lot of archive material where I exactly knew where the original place is. So I was looking for an idea to bring back the pictures and the material to the actual places where history took part. And my brother was looking for a way to how we can mark something which was very heavy, but in a way to attract people. So which we couldn't see in the film, but we also had 15 huge video walls with archive material, which is like a compilation film of 30 minutes. So this was the goal, and it took a while to get recognized by the city, but as soon as they recognized us, they were totally into the project, because I think they understood that it's a new way of dealing with history, not in a centralized way, like Memorial Days are at a specific time, at a specific moment, at a specific location with a basic specific message. So this is more decentralized. It's in the city. Let's say 50. At the end, it was 15 kilometers. In the beginning, we were thinking about 42 kilometers, the whole circle around Berlin. And what was also important is that we wanted to include people. So each balloon had a patron. So you could have applied for it, and then to attach this balloon with the personal stories and get the people along the balloons in contact with each other. So it's a combination of different angles. And what was the goal also is that we want to block streets. And the city understood it right from the beginning. There wasn't any discussion about not blocking streets. Because I think it's important. We were celebrating the end of something. Right? We were celebrating the fall of the wall. But I think if you want to really understand what it means to celebrate the fall, you have to understand separation. So this installation is more about the separation, the different aspects of separations, the different layers of German history, like that there were also in the archive material. We show not only the tragedy of the wall when they built the wall, but also that there were people who wanted to go to the east because they had dreams, or people in the east also had dreams. There was suppression, Stasi. It was. I think it's important to tell that this is a revolution made by the people from the GDR or the East Bloc. It's not a revolution organized by the politicians from the West, which sometimes some people really would like to tell in the history book. So this was multi-layers we were trying to include.
And how big was your team? I just can't imagine.
My brother was responsible for the development of the balloons. This is the end were about 8,000 balloons, and each thing, I don't know, the Stele, each stand was 100% developed for this event, and 100% analog. There wasn't any digital advice included. They weren't connected, and they were easy to carry to the place and to take off. And they should have. The goal was to develop something which lasts for more than 3 days in public space. Normally in November in Berlin it's raining and heavy winds, so it has to be flexible, but it still has to stand, and with batteries, whatever. So he was the designer for the balloons, and I think he had a team out of 10 in the center, 10 to 20. And I was responsible for everything with the balloons in public space. So where exactly, how high they have to be, what everything connected to the balloons and the films. And in the Mauerstücke, the archive material, I was working together with 3 editors for 2 months, and we had 2 archive research people.
And how?
And I think it was. The good thing is that we were doing something because it came from us. became because my brother and I, we were living in Berlin for 15 years. We were dealing with our city, or we were dealing with it for a long time, and this was the outcome. So we are not event artists checking the books. There's a next event going on, and then we develop something very fast for it. But this was the result of dealing with our own history in our city for a couple of years. So I think this was a different angle. So I had a clear perspective or clear vision of for example, the films. Not exactly how they should look like, but more than the perspective to give the voice to the archive material. But from today, in documentaries or in news, you have a topic, and then you go to the archive and try to find a picture which underlines the message. And we want to go to the archive to develop or to find pictures, unseen pictures and unseen complete scenes. It's because when we use archive material, we edit. And we didn't want to edit. We want to find out what is the archive material telling us. Maybe there's a new perspective on it. And which I've also found very interesting or very important is that the pictures from the wall, most of them are from the West. So we were looking for material from the East, or especially from inside the wall. And we were finding not propaganda film, but educational material from the GDR training their guards. And we found fiction films from GDR dealing with the wall, which I didn't knew before that they were dealing with the wall. I thought it was a kept secret. So this was also interesting for us to find new perspective and new layers of history.
And something that's very common in.
So my team was about 5 to 10. At the end, we had a composer. Everything was composed. I think it's. I would say that the music is my interpretation. Also in Master of the Universe, I use music as my voice. I try to not to explain what I think, but I try to give an emotion and perspective on material. And so we had a composer. He was composing 30 minutes, and also this for the films. We were about 10. So it was a small team. But then we had the city. You had the organizer of the patrons. We weren't organizing. You could have applied for 25 patrons, and they were organized, and we weren't responsible for building them up in the city or transporting them. There were about 100 more, or hundreds more.
It's just it's so large.
Yeah,
It's such a large.
The good thing is you don't know how large it gets when you start.
That's true.
You just think it's a good idea. Let's do it, and we were like when they built it up. The installation was there for 3 days, but they built up a day before, and then we were realizing what's going on, and people were taking pictures of the installation before on Twitter and Facebook, whatever, and then we realized, wow. The whole city it's the talk of the city at the day. Wow. I felt this thing. Wow.
And how
That became topic of the world, but
and it's so impressive also that you can see from above. I mean that's the aerial shots that there are very few artists that are thinking, like Christo's one of them, but like who's thinking of the aerial perspective, and that, I mean, that related to history is even more poignant.
I think it's important that also that's a long stretch of 15 kilometers. Then you know that it's longer than 15 kilometers. If you just do 1 kilometer, sometimes you think it's over. But I think you need a distance to understand it's a longer distance than also what you did. And everybody who was in Berlin, I think everybody did the whole distance. Or everybody I know of did. They walked the whole installation. And then you get an understanding of it, and this was only 15 kilometers, then you get an understanding what it really meant, that the city was separated.
You have such a fantastic way of, I mean, you're such a contemporary filmmaker, but really always with an eye or a lens on just recent history in order to like continue telling the story. And you have such a knack for the audience to experience that too, to have that scope, which see that very done as well as the way you do it. With the installation, what were some of the stories that you were hearing from people, or what were some of the interactions that people were having with the exhibit? Or were there anything that was really surprising in terms of the response that you were getting?
I think it was even better than we expected. Because I think the good thing is that nobody knew us, so we could observe our installation. We could observe how people were using the installation, the combination of the light and the films, and it was better than just giving, how to say, if you give information how you want your installation be interpreted, yeah, it was better than what we experienced, because it really it was an autonomous way of finding individual ways of dealing with the history. So everybody had his own way, and this made us very happy, because everybody had the feeling of discovering it by themselves. That they weren't led. They were led by the installation, but they had a feeling of that they discovered something very personal in a personal way. And this is what made me very happy, was how they were received, or how they used the installation as a personal way of dealing with it. And people started to talk to each other. They never met before, but then they started to talk. They told their personal stories, and then it got a very personal story of dealing with it. Even people from far abroad who lived in Berlin or came just for the installation, they said they got a feeling of what it meant that there was a wall. So.
I want to circle back to something, which is when you are picking projects, or when you have ideas and you have your questions, obviously how the audience is going to experience your project, and how do you make that determination in terms of how you want someone to experience?
It's psychology, I think. I try to give the audience the feeling of that they are independent viewers and discovering something by themselves, without being a message or getting too many hints. But at the end, I'm leading them. But I try to give them the feeling of being autonomous viewers and users of the installation. And I think it's the same with me. If I get the feeling that I discovered it by myself, I get a more personal contact to the topic. Then they're like documentaries using voiceovers, and after every statement there is somebody telling me how I have to interpret it or how I have to feel it. So this is what I'm trying to rearrange the situation that it's for the people using it, they discover it by themselves. I would have said this better in German, but
Yeah, that makes sense. And
it's a different way of leading, I think, or more psychological way of discovering it. I get the impression sometimes like if you want to get a fish, you do it like go back and forward and back and getting the attention, and this is, I think it's important to get the people, the audience always in a way of is it this? No, and it's on it. Keeping in motion, and then at the end they discover them by themselves.
So,
Satz ich kann in Deutsch sagen.
No.
Yeah. No, but it's so my way of how I like installation, how I like films, that you discover it by yourself.
And you have this, I mean, you were talking
There's
about,
nobody telling you how to feel it and interpret it.
So you were talking before about the documentary that you adapted into a theater piece. And I'm very curious, because you're employing a lot of theater kind of aspects in almost everything that you do, I feel. Even Master of the Universe of Film is like a filmed, almost one-man kind of show, but like filming. And I'm just curious if it's like the real-time aspect, or actually, if we could just go back to that film, can we talk about refreshing, like using a different medium to refresh ideas and to refresh works, and how, and I love that experiment that you, like, I love that you did that, so I would love to hear more about kind of your approach and, yeah.
With the theater play, this was made by a German theater writer. He was using my material as a basis for his screenplay, but it was based 60% on my documentary. So at the end, they're protagonists or characters in the film saying one by one what's happening in my documentary, but the arrangement and the setting is different.
Okay.
But concerning, for example, I'm in contact with another German documentary director, Andres Feil, who did a theater play about the financial crisis. And then we were dealing with the question, what's the best way of dealing with it? What's the best way of combining and getting the audience included in what's going on? And I think theater gives you more layers to play with. So we're thinking about doing a multi-layer theater play using also documentaries, also using real protagonists playing as themselves, but using actors playing the people who are not prepared or not willing to be on stage, whatever. So it's a more combination, more flexible, and using like I did in this film with archive material or with the annual reports of the banks, that using real material to show people this actually happens. This is not a theater play. Theater is a way of trying to explore the next level, or what's not to interpret it, but the bases are here. Also in my film, people say, "Wow, this is an investigative film," but you can find it on Google. Yeah, just put in whatever, and everything you can find it within 5 minutes. But you have to find it. You have to have the need, the personal need to get more information. And I think the question is how do we get people to get interested in? And I think it's, for me at the moment, the new way of using theater with videos, with like real characters and actors, and the combination, and with real material. I think it's an interesting way to deal with the financial or economic crisis.
It's
on the other side, like I want to go outside, don't go back to public spaces. It's also interesting. So because in theater you attract people who are attracted to topic and have a personal, they have a knowledge, specific knowledge and background, and they want to get information.
Right.
But what's going on when you show it to people who don't know that they want to have information? How do they react? So I have no answers, but at the moment I'm dealing with this to at the end finding new ways of find new way to
connect.
Transform the questions I have in a public discussion or discourse.
And so 10, 20 years down the line, you see yourself doing a lot more public facing, like public space, things like a little more interactive.
I think you have to do it. You have to confront the people more than before.
Because we're so barraged with, there's so much to consume right now.
Overdosed, and we get
Yeah.
relaxed, and then we want to have a film, and the film has to show everything. But I think you have to find a new way of confronting people, or catching attraction, or I don't know. This is, I think it's interesting how there's a new way of dealing with it.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the role of theater, that there used to be the space where you request society, and it was, and everybody expected it from a specific time, expected from theater that they are the people who deal with the specific problems. But at the moment there are some, but not so many. They replay plays from 10, 20, 50 years ago.
Right. And so, and in terms of like new technology and the way people are consuming things, so people have seen your work. People have seen things that are tickling them, that are provoking them, that they're enabled with the information. They have it now that they can't unknow what they know. What do they do with this information? What are some tools, like where your audience is, after they experience this, where do we go? What do we do?
I would say if you have one more question after the installation or after the film than you have prepared before, I reach my goal. I can't say what you do with your questions, but I think you are more sensibilized to the topic than you have been before. And I think it's the sensibilization of society for specific topics is the first step to get them on their own research, or on their own, because it's not like that there are no films or books or whatever written about all the topics. It's more than people didn't knew it or didn't knew that there is a need or there is a interest, and it's more about getting people interested in the topics because the information are there. Yeah. So that's more what I try to get people to sensibilize for topics or for bigger questions or whatever.
And what are some of the
But
challenges?
I can't, because sometimes people ask me, yeah, what's the solution out of the financial crisis? I don't know. Start by yourself. Form a group. Do something with your surrounding. Don't wait for others again, like the one leader solving the problems. You should realize after so many crises and political crises, you should realize that you have to start by yourself, not by waiting for the next god. So
Right.
like him, also you have to be very careful with him. I'm very grateful and thankful that he opened up, but he has an agenda. So don't follow him for 100%. So be sensitive to what's going on. To request if there is a really need that you have to bring your money to a big bank, a global bank. He said that there's no need to invest your money in a global bank. There's sufficient to a small bank around the corner. There are ethnic banks, whatever. If you're unhappy with life or society, then you can start in your surrounding, in your family, with your friends. If you complain about politics, telling lies, then you have to start by yourself telling truth. So it's naive in a way, but at the end it's not like, you don't have to be that passive. Also sometimes people are depressed after the film, but I said, no, don't be depressed. What I wanted to do is showing you that you have a right to answer the questions, and you have a right to request the answers, and you have the right to force people, or not force, but ask more questions, and ask the politicians and whatever. So, but everybody has to find his own way of dealing with this, and some people get be engaged. Yeah.
I highly recommend, if you guys get a chance to see After the Revolution, which I thought was fascinating. It was basically what happened once the wall came and they had to kind of reconstruct. East Germany had to basically reconstruct how they were going to dismantle everything that was there and start anew. And it was this roundtable conference. It's fantastic.
It's about,
We have it.
yeah, it's about, in the East they should call it the short autumn of utopia. That when the wall came down, it were the people from the East who brought the wall down, and they were starting to think how should good life be, how could society be, and then there was a round table with politicians from the East, but the politicians from the East, or the SED, the apparatchiks, they had an agenda, yeah? And the other ones, the opposition, they were starting to find the truth, and while the West was already having a different agenda. So it was like for trying to be autonomous, trying to find out what you want to do, and that you can do something at least.
It was a nice reset, a nice like reshuffle.
Yeah. But I did this film because I did it film 20 years after the wall came down, because at this phase there was like in German society people got more and more interested in politics. They were complaining more and more about that they can't do anything, and we did the film after the revolution to show that you can do something. And some of the questions the opposition people brought up at this phase, they were virulent to the problems we have today, but we didn't listen to them because we thought the West German system is the better one, so it was adapted. So this was the angle from why we did this film.
So After the Revolution, which was
Do you want to take questions?
Yeah, sure, let's take some questions, sir, let's open it up.
Can I throw in a question?
You can.
There's some stories now about international trade negotiation. I saw one between the U.S. and Germany right now. There are some bilateral trade negotiations going on. And the story that came out, not widely exposed, but came out in one or two places, is that the Germans are having they're being pushed right down. You know, if it's an arm wrestle, they're being pushed down by the U.S. trade representatives. And the thing is, the position of national politics versus international trade. And that national politics is being pushed down in favor of international trade. kind of thing that we saw with Australia. I think it was Philip Morris that I think they successfully sued the Australian government that they could not prevent a certain kind of packaging of cigarettes and a certain kind of marketing due to international trade agreements, and that their own assessment of how should we handicap cigarette sales for our own reasons, they're not allowed to anymore. That's what the law, the international law says. And this sort of was discovered years after by the media. Right now, will this be discovered, what's going on in Germany, years from now, and there'll be documentaries and after the horse is gone from the barn?
There's still,
then they'll
I think
close the
there's
door?
still the negotiations.
It's
Yeah.
Europe, has it then?
It's
TTIP, yeah.
TTIP, it's not only
So it's
Germany.
the US and Europe,
it's-
and it's the same, by the way, people don't
It's
know that
Canada.
because it's not in
I
the
think
papers
that-
here, but it's a parallel Canadian, and it has a
Yeah.
crazier name
They
than
signed it,
TTIP.
but they
Yeah.
rejected, or they
Canadian
were forced to
Europe.
discuss the
Yeah.
contract. But the German or European society is alert.
It's a huge discussion.
There's a huge discussion going on. The problem is that you don't get informations,
Yeah.
what's in the contract. And I know a person who is an anti-lobbyist in Brussels. She's working for an NGO to trying to find out what's going on. And she said that they hired now PR managers to place the topics which are maybe included in the TTIP in society. But the society is alert, I think. But it's a problem to discuss something when you don't know what's inside. So sometimes you get, like, from whistleblowers, you get information about trade things, and that you can that a company, global company, can sue a country if the law is against it, whatever, or about the chicken and the clawed chicken, whatever. But you don't know exactly what's in it. And I think this is the problem. This is the problem of politics, that people are not included and it's not open. And then as soon as it is not open, you think they're cheating 100%. But I think it's somewhere in the middle. It's the same with the financial crisis. And I think in Chancellor Merkel in Germany, he said this decision has no alternative. We didn't know what kind of decision was, what the alternative was, but she said there is no alternative. And I think this made a reaction to society that they lost confidence in politics because they weren't included. And I think at the end, if she would have take the time, which I took myself to discover it, I think she would have got 80% of society on board with her opinion. But she decided not to do it because she couldn't control the election, but the meaning of the position of the opinion of the society. I think this is more interesting for me. It's a thing of trust, and who has the right to decide what I know and what I don't know. And do they take the time to try to convince me or just exclude me? It's the same with the financial industry. They are not including me. Also, what they do is influencing my life. And so this is an interesting situation. But there are some contracts in the TTIP which are very good for Germans. But nobody talks about it. But also for German banks getting on the U.S. market. But in Europe we talk about the bad things. So, but
And
I
it
think
will impact you as a filmmaker, because that's the big thing in
Yeah,
France
okay.
and Germany is
there's also about
potential
financial-
cultural
yeah.
exemption
Yeah.
and protection of cultural content versus Hollywood content. So good luck in
But
film funding.
I have no final position to this topic. The only thing I say is if you do something behind the doors, you can't expect that I trust you. So it's about trust and having a public discussion or whatever. About also about what's the future of society.
In a democracy. This would be elected people.
Yeah, but,
Yeah. So, on the trailer, the gentleman said something about Greece. What was his solution? I didn't get that quite. It's
in the film he's telling about how lawyers can attack Greece by buying shitty packages
Yeah.
and forcing the government to pay 100%, because there was like public government bonds which lost their value.
Yeah.
And then there was a deal like, okay, we give you 40%, and people were happy. But you can buy this package and force countries to pay 100%, which did U.S. investor did it with.
Yes, it did.
He attacked whatever.
Argentina.
Argentina and Serbia, and I think also an African country.
Did he win? Did he?
Yeah, they always win because it's the law.
Can you?
Yeah, and then it's important where you do it.
Yeah.
For example, it's important to do it in London, and there are two different parts of shares. He explained it in details also in the film. It's like there are some bonds given out by the Greece government on Greece law. Then you can. There's no chance to win because the Greece government is doing the law. But if there are some bonds given out by international law, then you can buy them.
Can you?
You can do it. It's allowed to buy something and selling it.
Can you get your film on DVD?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a Canadian distributor. I think you can
Where can you
get
get
it
it?
somehow.
You didn't bring any.
We haven't,
So-
we have one
Ah.
copy that can be viewed here at the Goethe,
Okay.
sorry.
Yeah, no, but you
we
can
can't
see it on
blend
iTunes.
Kino Smith is the
Oh,
Canadian
okay.
distributor,
Hmm.
and I guess you can buy it, there's a UK import that you can buy through.
Yeah, but we
Channels
have
and-
a distributor in the US also, and I know it's on iTunes and Netflix and
Oh, that's
Oh,
right,
it's on
yeah.
it's
Netflix.
everywhere.
Yeah.
In Canada as well?
I don't know how they regionally.
Not all
whatever.
Netflix are created
It's a
equal.
problem.
Yeah.
But if you don't get through, I think the US distributor, he's really happy about VOD. So we had a cinema release in New York, which wasn't that good. But he said he's so happy about VOD and digital whatever. So maybe it's the same market or not.
Can I ask a question? In the film, you kept focusing back on an office building in Frankfurt.
Hmm.
And I'm not knowledgeable about the names of architectural styles, but this building was so ominous looking. It had the, kind of pillars at the top. It had a, if the Trilateral Commission had a head office, this is what it would look like. And you kept coming back to it. I thought that was an incredibly interesting part of the film. I just was curious about if you saw it that way when you made the film.
About
Do
the
you
building?
see this as an ominous
Architecture.
presence? This building?
Yeah, but this is
I
the
missed
way.
the first few minutes, so I missed the name of the building. That's why
We
being so
didn't,
vague.
we didn't tell it.
Oh, you didn't? Okay.
No, it's not important.
Yeah.
I know it, but no, I think I'm interested in architecture because architecture is telling about society, how they want to see themselves, or about how about architecture thinks society should see. That's how you can use architecture to, like Ottawa, like using heavy, whatever, concrete 70s thing. It shows you power.
Yeah.
I
It
was
the
very irritated
ultimate
being
in power.
Ottawa. Huh?
It was the ultimate image of power to me.
Yeah, but
And
the
you
interesting
kept
thing
coming
is
back
with
to it. It was
financial
like-
industry, they pretend to be transparent. Like here also, they use glass, for example, and steel, strong and transparent.
Absolutely, yeah.
And this is interesting to deconstruct it. How they want to be seen, and how they really are. So the lighter they shine, the lesser is inside.
Yeah.
That's my impression.
There's
No,
a bank here.
absolutely. I think-
There's a bank here now that's trying to get people to borrow more against their homes, et cetera. And it says, you're richer than you think. Yeah.
But
It's a good borrow.
interestingly, in Frankfurt, there was a renovation going on in all the banks that they were opening up their entrance. Before the entrance was more like heavy and whatever. Now they were opening up in glass and transparent. And they were putting in a reception, huge reception with a nice woman and nice art. So when you pass by, you think, wow, yeah, looks good. But that's the only, you only get to the reception, and that's it. That's the end of the story. But you get the feeling of, wow, yeah, this. So. And with the building we were filming it seemed to look like a church. You had to
Yeah,
go up
something.
3 steps, and then you enter the room where the cashiers used to stay, and then it's the same feeling of like a church. It's the church of modern times.
Yeah, exactly.
So-
It was like a
Yeah.
monolith, like in the.
Yeah, Yeah, but this
2010.
architecture is chosen by, not by coincidence. It's where it had a specific role in showing power and trust
Oh,
in the whole
absolutely it
industry.
would,
It's
yeah.
the same with
So your
suits.
use of it was brilliant in keeping me
Yeah.
engaged in the film and kind of, one of the things that I liked so much about it, having seen other films and I'm in the financial industry and very intimate with a lot of this stuff, is that you raised the level of the debate. Here, it wasn't people throwing things at each other and yelling and screaming and being defensive. You know, many of the people in the industry, I think, are afraid of being attacked or cut off before they can really explain, and it's not really what they're good at, is explaining what it is. But you raise the level of quality of the
They are
debate
afraid.
far above.
I got my impression after 2 years working on this film and now preparing the fiction film. It's a connection of fear inside the industry. Everybody is so out of fear, and then that they grab to each other and they form a coalition against everybody outside, and they pretend like little kids, saying they asking questions, or they think this they get this kind of interpretation of what I did, and they pretend like it's small kids, and this makes me really aggressive because I think they are in a way they are a brilliant thinker, maybe on specific types, but they really know what went on and what's still going on, and they're afraid of stepping out of the circle or whatever, because there's nobody catching your hand. Yeah? You're losing the family. Yeah? You're losing your family, and you don't know what's going to happen. But the example of Rainer Voss is showing that there are a lot of people really thankful and grateful for stepping out of the circle, because there are a lot of people who are really open, will to understand on a basis of not, it's not about guilt or that you are the bad guy. It's more about trying to understand.
Exactly.
And we need more of them. And that like the example I was telling about this award ceremony, that everybody in the room knew that they had to stand up. But it's as long as you don't know what's going on when you stand up, then you keep on sitting, because you have mortgages and houses and whatever, and triple cars, boats.
Well, you avoided the traditional vilification, which seems to go on in all debates. Now it's all about a person. It's this guy.
Yeah, but it's a typical way. It's a typical way about like Nazi dealing with the Nazi past in Germany. At the beginning they were trying to say it's one, or it's him, or it's them, or whatever. It helps you to identify good and bad. But I think the problem is the gray in between, and you have to attract this, and that's why we didn't give any information about the guy. At the end of the film, you can read Rainer Voss, yeah. But it wasn't important how old he was, what his name is, what his family is. He was telling a typical story about typical person in this industry. And it's not like Wolf of Wall Street, it's more like your neighbor. Unfortunately, it's more difficult if they would look and behave like Wolf of Wall Street. It's easier to identify them.
Yeah.
And to
But the
extract
debate
them from
goes nowhere.
society and
That's the
say,
problem.
okay, this is not good. It's the bigger problem. They are in the center of society, and they're still influencing, and they're still not doing anything. Developing new products.
There's no control, no.
Yeah, but if you in every other part of your life, you don't do something if you don't understand it. But people buy things, a person in a suit is telling them it's good. But people didn't understand what they were buying. So you have to trust your own perspective and on your own feelings on this kind of topic.
My son has a solution. He used to be a desk manager, and he said anywhere in a financial institution, if you see a whole lot of young people making a lot of money, asks them what they're doing, and then tells them to stop it.
But then and the people will laugh about you.
But you know, that was the problem. The guys were making money, and the boss on top didn't really know exactly what's going on.
He knew it.
And
Because before, absolutely, before he was in this position as a boss, he did the same job. With a different perspective, but with the same goal. This is a topic my protagonist is telling. Everybody, they don't know exactly, but they know that if you're a boss of a department, and everybody is gaining 10%, and one is gaining 40%, you know something is going on. But because you have a boss on top on it, and you are paid by the percentage your department is developing each month, you say, okay, take it. Yeah. So you know it. You can know it if you want to. So it's not like my boss didn't know, or he, as a boss, I didn't know what he did. Like with the French guy, Javier.
Yeah.
But
He had to know, and the boss knew it.
But the top guy didn't know, but as Greenspan said, he couldn't understand how they were destroying their own companies. But the guys that were making the money,
But he took
they
the
couldn't
money.
care less.
Yeah,
They couldn't
but-
care less, and the big guys really were, you know, it was kind of complicated and sort of thing. We had one bank in Toronto, and they were trying to sell it to them, and they said, I don't understand it, and I don't buy it, and I won't tell you which bank it is. But you know, there was a lot. It's very complicated, and it worked, and you know,
Yeah,
the
well,
guys.
it's the same with, at the end of my film, he says, if the boss says no, stop it, they will stop it from one day to the other. The problem is that nobody wants to say stop, because they don't know what will happen. If you don't, if you stop betting on countries or on products, whatever, if you stop it, you can do it within seconds, but you don't know what will happen. How will the market react? How will the others react on it? But I don't know. I'm not that disappointed. It will take 25 years, like organic products. In the 80s in Germany, people were laughing about these small shops where they were trying to sell organic food for triple the price. Yeah? But 25 years later, you can buy organic food in any big food chain. And not because it's good, but it's because it makes money. Yeah. So it will take some time until the industry will understand that they have to at least give the feeling of ethical correctness and give the feeling of choice. Like I'm at an ethical bank, and you can decide where your money goes if you have something on your account, and you can decide for whatever. Yeah. So I get the feeling of at least I can decide a bit. I don't know if I can't. I never took the time to control if they do it, but at least it gives the feeling of sensibility. Yeah.
But there were a couple.
And I think they didn't. What they didn't count is the damage of the PR damage.
Well, there were a couple of people that actually said that's how it isn't working, there's going to be a problem. They were actually fired. And I forgot their names, but there were several people that said this is going to end badly within the companies and even the big bosses. We're making money. Don't talk to me about that.
Yeah.
But it's not only all about money. That was one thing that I took away, in particular in this whole series that we've shown from your film, was the psychology aspect of it.
Mm.
Well, and Voss described how this was a little game too. Like, it's vanity. It's these guys are
Like
top
football.
dogs. They're
It's
just
even
like,
more,
why don't
it's
you
a-
try to develop this thing? Well, how he was explaining this
Mm.
thing about the currency, betting on currencies. Just betting was the crucial term here. Like, they're gamblers.
It's about
they're
information.
vain.
No, it's about
I'm better
interpreting
than
information.
him.
It's
It's
about-
an interesting clique.
But it's a
of
mental
men.
it's a mental game. If there's
Yeah, it's a
something
mental
going
game.
on, the question is how will it affect the markets, and how can I make money out of it before the next will understand the system. It's about fast track information. Verarbeitung.
All this is
Yeah,
true, but
data
I think what
processing.
you achieved in this, which I thought was so important to me, being in this industry and hearing such banal debate about this constantly, was that when it comes to rounding up the usual suspects here, the usual suspects are human nature, complexity, as well as bad motivation, perverse incentives, all these things. And if you can get it to that level where it isn't a question of they're all bad, we're all good here. And you reduce it, you bring it to the level of, you know, there are a million little scams in the world that existed 2,000 years ago or last week. The idea of exploiting legal documentation language, like the Greek bond, which had very perverse consequences. But that's the essence of fundamental research, is looking for information the other guy doesn't have. So all of this with complexity he did such a good job, and you did a good job of bringing that out and putting a context to it so that we didn't have to hate the guy. Because the minute we hate him, he shuts up and goes about making money, and nobody gets anywhere, and we don't actually get any reform. So I think that was your intent, to do that, and it was effective.
And
I hope so, but.
Sorry I talked so long.
I was at a conference yesterday with a whole bunch of economists, one from Harvard, and who were specializing in the European crisis. And one of the problems is that Germany has this big surplus. And that is actually a problem because, and you know, tell Germany you can't have a surplus. Theoretically, what you would have to have is surpluses used to be have to be balanced, like John Maynard Keynes said. You know, you have a surplus is a deficit somewhere else. It causes a problem eventually. But tell Germany, tell Angela Merkel, she can't have a surplus.
Yeah, if you have more than your neighbor, do you give your neighbor something?
Well, no, you could invest.
I'm
You
afraid
could
that your
invest.
neighbor
You
will
don't
take
have.
it.
Yeah, you
It's
don't
a-
have. Yeah, you
it's a-
could
it's a-
invest in other countries
It's
or
a
something.
social
You could
problem of
balance it.
individual behavior in the group. Like I like the book from Steinbeck. I forgot the name. Früchte des Zorns.
Yeah.
John Steinbeck about the first explorer who took over the land of the indigenous people and started to be farmers. And then there came the next immigrants, and they were pretending like, hey, it's my own, my soil. Please go. Like this protectionism, but also knowing that they were in a similar situation a couple of years ago. It's like you discovered or explored something and you want to protect it. And it's difficult to get it in the mindset that if we all share, we will win.
But if you're part of the EU, you should think about this because that's how it is going to work. It's not going to work.
Yeah, but I'm not a politician.
But there is an EU, unlike Canada or the US, who do not think
Yeah,
that
but
way
in
at
a-
all. So
There's a discussion going on, and
big experiment.
like in Greece, there is a political
Yeah.
change. In Spain, at least the conservatives are forced to deal with these questions. I don't think if there will be a real political change, long ongoing political change, but I think the established parties have to deal and realize that there is a need in discussing this kind of problems. But I think it's not that easy because for every position concerning Europe and the financial crisis in Europe, you find a professor and a professor, and they have opposite positions. There's
The
no
only grade.
there's no real, but it's.
Was there any change to like the regulatory body of the Ministry of Finance, at least in terms of how they manage? Like, I mean, in the States there was no regulation, and here there was, and Mark took credit for it, but it was before that. I wanted to get rid of it. And I'm just curious if anything like.
There are some. I'm not a specialist on finance, but there were some rules that the percentage of real, I would say, transform it in my language, the percentage of real money you have to have while
Reserves,
doing what reserves, yeah, has to rise a bit, about from 5% to 7%, or from 5% to 10%. It's only a little percentage, just the amount of money you really have to have, and the rest is virtual in exchange with other banks. So they try to put in some marks and regulations. But the thing is that, what I think is that we are trying to find regulation for a problem which occurred in the past,
Yeah.
which won't help us, maybe won't help us to protect us for the next problem because it will never occur on the side. So it was the same with the crisis of 2008. the society was dealing with, trying to understand what went on, and forgot to think about what will happen next. So we have to understand the principle of the system in the way of the behavior, to understand that this will happen on and on and on. As long as we don't understand it, we have to. This is a social problem. So you have to start in schools or in the society. There has to be an open discussion about how do we want to live together? What's the generational thing? What do you want to give your grandchildren when you die? Yeah. Is there, and we're cutting social supports and whatever. We're cutting it out of, or the debts have to pay the next generation. So I think this is important to have a social debate on this, so that you're sensitive to what's going on.
And I think for people
You will never change people who want to be bad. You can't.
Which is all of us sometimes.
Yeah, we will always we want to make your dollar somehow.
Well,
But
on a
when it's
micro
depending-
level, we all
I think
do.
it's a
I'm
question of
rude to somebody,
sensibility.
but there's a metaphor in politics too, in the larger picture. And understanding that, I think, is really important. Like, regulators can do only so much, like supervising
Based on
absolutely every
information.
utterance, every transaction that goes. But somebody has to stop and look at the design of what's possible. Like when chartered accountants who audit financial statements, they had one job to do until about 30 years ago, and that was to make sure the statements were in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. Then they broke away from the model, the purity of that, and accountants started to offer tax services, consulting, IT consulting, management consulting. Then the problem became, you did the audit of, say, Philip Morris. Your audit fee was $1 million a year, but you were earning $15 million a year from all the ancillary services. What does that mean if you have an audit problem and you have to blow a whistle on a bad number? The perverse incentive is there. There's no way on earth you can regulate. The U.S. is one of the most regulated markets at all levels of government, and it doesn't work very well.
Yeah.
And in every opportunity that we have regulation here, it often doesn't work either. You know, we've been lucky, as well as there are some good designs as well, but I think understanding the human nature aspect of it is so important, and just the complexity and the fact that we all behave badly at times. You put that together, and then you know what you can regulate. You can regulate what is possible, rather than enforce altruistic or idealistic situations. And I'm sorry I'm telling you this. You told me this in your film.
Yeah.
So, but.
I think there was
I'm
one
sorry, we
more.
have
But
time
you
for
see,
one
you-
more question. Sorry, this
Sorry.
gentleman.
I'm sorry for being late, and I was really looking to watch your movie, but I've never been here before and whatever else. My question relates to, we were talking about this kind of idea of how people always want to do evil and whatever. There's a striking moment in art, in a movie in particular, the original, The Sky Over Berlin, resonates with me, where the angel is speaking to the old man about why is it that humans always want to constitute what's wrong with peace. And I was just wondering about your input, or if you've incorporated this film at all into yours, or what the case might be. Sorry.
Yeah. I won't tell something about Himmel über Berlin, but I think it's every time has sometimes the same questions occur after a while, and it's always the search for an answer why specific things occur or happen. I can't tell you now exactly, compare it with, I would love to say Wim Wenders is my hero, but,
Sure.
but I think it's not the reason why I do films. I do films because I have a feeling that same questions occur in certain time spans. So it's there are some like waves, like in my film Masters of the Universe, something happened like the mortgage crisis happened in the 80s in Britain. And the problem is that nobody knew it because there was no voice-to-voice information, or there's no information exchange. There's no communication between parents and children or next generation. I think this is the question, or the where I try to find my solution about how, because the humankind behaves in specific ways the same. But after a while, with communication tools, we should be developing ourselves in a way, but somehow it happens always the same. So I'm trying to connect generations or time spans, or make, and like with my films about GDR history, it's more about finding traces in the past to understand daily life. So it's more about connecting. It's not about gaining the information, but connecting them. So it's my perspective on it. And in the end, it's me. It's me, my family, or my friends. Well, when I complain about the rest, I have to at least be there, start there to form something which I really love to develop. And like grassroots. And from time to time, sometimes there's something coming out, like organic foods.
Right.
And everybody's selling it, and it's everywhere here.
Sure.
Even in the US, there's and you can make money out of it.
And just to follow up, how big of an influence are, like, I forget the guy's name, Chris, he sued Obama and he's proactive in this kind of, or like people who make similar films as you. Do you watch every single film that comes out on this similar topic?
Not really.
No?
I was watching Inside Job, for example, but I'm not watching every film. Interestingly, sometimes we come up with the same solutions, or we
Same conclusions?
Conclusions,
Yeah.
or conclusions. But it's not important to know everything about more. It's like everybody has his personal way of dealing with it, and then if you come up with a similar conclusion, there should be something. But I'm not a pro in finance. I'm not a pro. I'm more interested in
The human aspect.
Yeah.
But that was the thing they used to say, you know, just when it was all building up, they said, there's only 5 people in the world that understand these derivatives, you know, so don't bother trying to understand it. It's a simple thing. The packaged bad stuff is good stuff.
Well, so this is why we're so grateful that you're a filmmaker and you decided to change vocations into filmmaking. So
I could have done more money in the other.
You did pretty well so far in that movie. The projects keep coming, so we're thrilled that they are. And thank you so much for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you.